if I didn't want you to actually send the messages, I was hoping we could make the notes on them and read them and go over it together. Now let's see what it says for Mamoon. Mamoon, you need to set up your course with my email. Ask Jay to send you. So yeah, this is not acceptable. Like anything that says like, oh, Jay needs to do something for worker involvement criteria, absolutely not acceptable.
Yeah, you specified that after your answer to that.
Every worker should be able to get their own worker criteria set up. But someone just sent this message, right?
Now, yeah,
Oh,
no. The messages we are in line 105 and 109. The message that we just sent, based on the guidelines that we just established.
Okay, let's see what it says here. I'm not sure why you're sending it from the eval team. That's kind of silly. Okay, well, this one is old. Right? New one. Hey, Mamoon, here's a list of minimum worker involvement criteria to complete the next week to prevent going towards them who have to step up. So what's happening in a week? What's happening the next week?
In the next week, we would follow up and put him in eventually in a half pay stop or a hard stop.
Okay, so but is there something happening next week? Like, are you sure it's going to happen next week?
Well, I'm gonna put auto reminders to myself to check to follow up on these messages.
So I mean, basically, if you're saying it's going to happen next week, it needs to happen next week. So for me, I would just leave that out and say, this is your worker involvement criteria. Whether it happens next week or the week after or whatever the next deadline is fine. But it's like, you're basically saying that you're following up in 1 week. So to be professional, you have to follow up in 1 week if that's what you're going to do. But it's not required under the responsibility organizing. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but I mean, it's also good to let the worker know to try to do this in 1 week to prevent this. I mean, I didn't specify it's exactly after 1 week he would go into hard stop because this is something that is not related to them. But
correct, but the point is that you need to work on this next week to follow up on it.
Yeah, of course. It's my job to follow up on this. Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
But isn't your job to make sure to do the worker involvement criteria, which is when's the next deadline for the worker involvement criteria, the next eval session? So you have a month. So the deadline, the work that you are assigned to do is in 1 month from now. So you can assign yourself additional work in a week. That's your own prerogative to do that, but it's not required under the responsibility organizing to do that. Okay, you understand?
I mean, yeah, but those are two. I mean, now there's two paths because I'm also responsible to follow up and verify. Otherwise, I'm responsible to put the worker on hard stop and individual upfront pay stop if he doesn't meet criteria. I can do that in 1 month. Yeah, I can do that in 1 month. But I mean, this one job is to do the verification of the involvement criteria. Then once you do the communication,
that's all we're talking about right now. We're only talking about the worker involvement criteria verification on the upfront pay stop that's happening.
Yeah, so that is not for me to follow up. Is not required to.
Correct. So the fact that it says next week is fine, but it's not required, and it should be clear in the responsibility organizing that you just need to tell them that they need to complete this to prevent individual half-foot pay stop. It's not necessarily they need to complete it within a week. It would be great for them to complete it in a day, right? So just like. My recommendation for the responsibility organizing is just to make sure it's clear that you let them know that they need to complete this work. By when you're going to follow up and all that is really not necessary. We want them to complete it as soon as possible. You can just say as soon as possible instead of next week or next day or a half week or 2 weeks. Really, the amount of time is irrelevant. It's just doing the work, okay?
Okay, I'm gonna.
But anyways, I think it's fine to say next week. But then again, that's giving yourself more work that's not currently assigned. All right, so one, need to include your main position in your main doc. So your main position is in their top, right?
And it should be also in the main doc.
Why does it need to go in the main doc?
Well, the list says in the main doc, in the worker coordination. So we also updated the template.
But this is great. So let's take a look at
the template. We also updated the template now with because there was also a problem in the template. The template was not specifying position and roles.
Usually all we tell people is that they need to do their main doc. I've never known that their main doc needed to have specific something or other updated, unless it was like their worker schedule or something like that, or priorities. So we are looking at the criteria main doc. Yeah, you have your main doc. Right.
Yeah,
So the criteria is that everyone has a main doc. You're required to have a main doc. That's the criteria. In their main doc, you have a bunch of things going on with that. But those are just like, guidelines. Like there's so much information that goes in the main doc. The idea that the only thing he needs to have correct in his main doc is his position is against the policy, because it doesn't make sense. If I looked at Mamoon's doc, there's probably a dozen things he needs to clarify and organize, including his responsibilities and his categorizing and his self-driven responsibilities and all this stuff, his schedule, everything needs to be organized in his main doc. To tell him that he only needs to do the position doesn't make any sense.
all right, then we made a mistake on that. We made a mistake on that. Yeah. So it's just the main doc.
The requirement is to have a main doc where you put all of your information in relationship to your involvement. Right? So we can go through, there should be more details of the criteria. Like I don't know what we're looking at right now, but there was responsibly organizing for this before, and I don't see, oh yeah, you put the responsibly organizing link here. But does the responsibly organizing link describe in more detail what this is? Let's see. So worker involvement criteria verification, is that it?
Yeah.
Do we have a list of the criteria, or
are you looking at the spreadsheet or the document?
Responsibility organizing. Yeah, I don't see anything. Oh, here we go. Responsibilities list. No, there's nothing here. Okay, so I don't see an actual list of criteria anywhere. We don't have a list of criteria. Right.
Yeah.
So boom. That's what the evaluation session is for. Right. So again, the whole point of this is not to just send out messages to Mamoon, right? The point is to actually send out the correct information, right? So the work that needs to get done here is to, make/update the list of criteria and description for each one. You said there's 22 criteria?
22.
So this is the most important work that needs to get done under this responsibility for the next month. Right? And the responsibility is the worker criteria verification. So without the actual list, how are you supposed to do the verification? Does that make sense? So we have a list, and we have a very, a list with basically the categories.
Yes. We took away the list. We said you said in the responsibility organizing to go into the verification spreadsheet for the POP and the MBT directly to do that work in the POP and MBT.
I don't know what we're talking about. Anyways, in the responsibility organizing, it needs to break down every single criteria and what it means. I guarantee you in the old responsibility organizing, there must have been something that described what was supposed to happen. So we just need to update that for next month, okay?
Yeah.
So we want to do it way better than before, right? So before we probably had some crappy lists or that wasn't very clear. So what we want to do is we want to have all 22 listed, and then we want to have a clear description about what it means, right? Because it says POP, right? But what does POP mean? What do you actually have to have completed on your POP to meet the criteria? That needs to be described. It can't just be the 4 letters POPP. That's not professional. It's not clear what the actual criteria is. You understand?
Yeah, I do.
So the criteria actually needs to be developed. The criteria is not clear yet. So it's very difficult to put someone an upfront pay stop for their main doc when there's not a clear criteria for the main doc for what they did wrong. Right? And again, what I don't like is the idea that the only thing that Mamoon needs to fix in his main doc is just his position and roles. That doesn't make any sense, especially when that information is already on his POP.
Yeah. Maybe I got confused with the should be linked. The POP should be linked in the main doc.
Yeah. So the next one is you need to be active and move forward with your training. So the training is a big time issue with a lot of the team. But this is not clear at all. It says you need to be
Yeah,
active
exactly.
before the training. Okay, well, what does that mean? I'm active with my training. I come to sessions all the time, and da 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 da. It needs to be clear. It needs to be. You need to clearly state what training you're on and what training responsibility or that you're doing, the training number, and where you are in your training process, because that's not currently clear. So that could actually be presented as a question,
Yeah.
and the
So
question. So we need to have the criteria. So for me, the criteria for the training is that they're clearly in a training process and they know exactly what training or maybe maximum 2 or 3 trainings that they're actively engaging with. Does that make sense?
yeah, it could be a question.
Yeah, and that's how we used to do it before.
Yeah,
I remember
I would
when,
like to
yeah, when
I'd
I
like
joined
to know
evidence.
more specific about the training from.
But whose responsibility is it to know more specific about the training? Aman?
I'm sorry, Jay.
Whose
What did you say?
responsibility is it to know more specific about the training? Like
Yeah,
to
exactly, exactly. I was
whose
about to ask
responsibility is
that.
it?
I was about to ask that, but you just
When do
got
you ask
mentioned.
that?
I didn't ask, but I was about to ask. I just
But now is a terrible time to ask. This is not the time to ask about your personal training, right?
Yeah,
If you are required to have your training set up, it's your responsibility to do it. Nobody else's. So if you didn't take responsibility to do it, that's your own problem, not anyone else's problem. Does that make sense?
yeah,
So you
makes
need to
sense.
prioritize at the beginning of the session. You need to be asking questions on Discord every single day, and it will get taken care of. If you don't do that, you're not prioritizing. You're not doing it. Period. Does that make sense? Now is not the
Makes
time.
sense.
Okay.
Makes sense.
All right.
Yeah.
So if people prioritize their training, they'll get it taken care of. If that includes asking the question every single day, what is the next step on my training? That's perfectly fine, right? But if you don't even ask that
Okay.
question, you're obviously not taking it seriously. So anyway, so this could be the criteria for this needs to be clear because right, it's not clear. So really, they just need one training that they're working on, and that they're working through, and they need to understand that when they're doing the training, if they don't stop at the end of the training, they get policy tracking. You can't go on to the next training until you've actually finished the one you're on. Number 3, you need to have a minimum scheduled sessions in the weekly schedule. So this one's simple, clear, easy, done, right? I don't think we need even to go into that. And then you need to pick another management position. I think that one's also clear. Very simple criteria. You're required to have a management position. You're required to have a schedule, required to have a management position. So it's really just these first 2 that are unclear. This one I would actually get rid of. I don't think this one actually
Yeah,
qualifies. And then this one just needs more clear wording to make it specific to the criteria. Because when you say you need to have actively move forward in your training, there's nothing specific there. You need to have very specific criteria that needs to be met, which is that they need to have a specific training process and they need to know exactly where they're in within that training process. So every process will have multiple trainings and every training will have its own responsibility number. They need to clearly state exactly where they are in their training, and then they need to be going through that training. And if they don't have that training set up, then they need to prioritize that session after session, day after day, communicating on Discord until it's getting set up. And if they're doing that, they're going to be able to prevent going on upfront pay stop. If they're not doing that, then they should go on upfront pay stop.
So I made this a question now.
Jay,
Okay. Yeah, Ate, you need to
in
be
line 135. Yeah.
what?
yeah.
In line 135, is it correct, this one?
This
We
looks
need
fine.
a
You have the
5-minute
link,
break.
and you
Yeah,
actually, yeah, we're going to take a break soon. We started a little late, but let's just finish this up. So you have the link to where the person can get on the main spreadsheet, the main group communication list for the team. So that's great. So it's super simple. And again, that's what needs to be clear here is that you can't just say that you need to, move forward with your training. You have to say specifically how to fix the problem, right? So what you have for Ate is very, very correct in that it tells you how to fix the problem. Does that make sense?
This is okay. Okay, it's okay.
So I don't know if this is going to work, but at least it's an option. If it doesn't work, then we address the issue.
Oh.
but there needs to be a solution, right? The scheduling is a solution. You schedule for the sessions that you want to. So you could link the scheduling sheet. The management position, you could send them the list of all the different management positions that they could sign up for, right?
Okay.
Yeah, I just have a question before we take a break. This link that we just link in the, let me see.
SVG main sheet.
Yes, that's the SVG. Where exactly do I find the link to join the core team? Because I was there yesterday and seriously I could not find it.
You cannot find here in
So you could have just sent the link to
communications.
the actual, yeah, so you click on the communication tab,
Communications tab.
and what line is it?
It's core team. Where's core team? Yeah,
It's line
line
13.
13. Okay.
Okay, line 13. Okay, thank you.
And I'll put it in our notes as well.
Okay.
All right, so we're ready for a break.
5-minute break. Yeah.
Cool. So let's just finish up with the other workers, and then we will have met this the deadline. But don't send any more messages until we review them first. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just write it down on the spreadsheet or wherever, and then we could go over it before you send it to them so that it's correct. Cool. 5 minutes.
Okay, let's continue. Or you want to take a break?
Yeah,
we're
break.
gonna